What's up, everybody? How are you? It's your host, Bill Forster, this segment of Real Talk Chronicles, and here's my co-host, Kevin Branzetti, coming in the building. I hope everybody had a wonderful, wonderful day. I, on the other hand, had a great day, but I did something very silly. I went out there and tried to ride a bike in this sweltering heat, which was no bueno. I shouldn't have did that, and shame on me for thinking I was still that warrior that could do that. But with that being said and all that saying, I'm here and I'm got my water and I'm good. And I hope you all are having a great day. Just to bring you up, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host. It's the podcast that keeps it real all the time. And always 100. It's opinionated with a lot of facts. And, we just try to give you the best content that we can and possible. I'm your host. There's my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. Kevin, how are you doing today? Uh-oh, there he is.
Trying to find the unmute button. Yeah. Good evening. I'm doing well. Thank you, Bill.
Good. Staying cool in this heat?
That I am. I am definitely taking it easy.
Good.
My little guy keeps popping his head in.
Well, that's good. Tell young master we said hello.
It took him almost a year to get a little brave, right?
Today I want us to talk about. Well, first, let me just give everybody some announcements real quick. Well, the 4th is coming, so I hope you all have a wonderful 4th. We will not be here doing that. We will take a break, and we will be back with Kevin and I, and hopefully Chuck that next Wednesday. And then the following Monday, I'm going to have all the hosts of the Real Talk Chronicles on together. And we're just going to have just a real talk, just wholesome conversation. And we're going to go forward with there and just keep it going and going and going. And I know the weather, people out here trying to have a good time, but still, you can watch us on YouTube. You can watch us in delay. Just watch us and share it, subscribe to it. With that being said, the mayoral race is on and popping. Eric Adams is the front runner, and he will be going against Curtis Lewa. And no matter who you're voting for, it is what it is. But whomever becomes the mayor will have to deal with public safety. And that's the topic on the table right now at hand. Also, just for news, Bill Cosby is out. I don't know how you feel about that. We can discuss him. Derek Chauvin got sentenced to 22 years. We can discuss that, how you feel about that. And we can discuss anything that you want to talk about when it's dealing with public safety or just real talk in general. We are here to try to give insight on anything we can to help you. We can shed light to anything we can do. So, Kev, Eric is the Democratic front runner right now until I guess they finished up all the tallying of votes.
Yeah.
And
which is going quite interestingly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It really is. Tell a little one he can always jump in anytime he wants to. So there we go. Shout out to everybody that's watching. What's up, Cabrera, James, Yolanda? How are you all? Appreciate you all for chiming in with us. So, Kev, what would you, if you and I was able to sit down? Well, not even that yet. We'll get to that later. But what would be some of the things that you think whomever becomes the next mayor, what would be his first course of Virginia in starting in dealing with public safety? Hello, Collins. Go ahead, Kevin. Share your thoughts. Get my other.
So, I mean, we got to turn the tide, right? We have started I guess a year ago, the movement started with the murder of Floyd and having Chauvin now convicted. The conversation was opened up, and I think we made some mistakes along the way the last year. So whoever the new police commissioner, new mayor is, we got to get cops back to where they're working again. I think cops have are afraid to do their job at this point. We've given them mixed signals on what they should do, what we want them to do. We asked them to go into protests or not protests, into violent protests and arrest people. We asked them to clear out Washington Square Park and clear out people, but then we're not prosecuting them. So those people are immediately free to sue, the police department, to sue those cops now individually. We walk a tough line of public safety and treating people with respect and humility. And that's going to be a tough job for if it's Eric or somebody else. I think at this point it's going to be Eric, Adams winning. It is going to be a tough thing of putting real reform into police departments, but also letting cops be cops, letting good cops feel their boss has their back and they're allowed to make a mistake and, doing their job. So
yeah,
I don't envy the next mayor. Like, I'm not, by any stretch of imagination, this is not an easy task, an easy heel.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Maybe you can elaborate more on what you were saying about, putting cops in, uncompromising situations. I know we've differed and not so much in lieu of cops being put in situations where, you and I, if we were working, our hands weren't tied back then. We were able
Agreed.
to arrest and do things that made the city safe and people feel safe. People don't call cops anymore. Why is that? You know what I'm saying? They're and then, like you said, with the park, some people like the park, some people, but what's so funny? You know what I have a problem with, really? Everybody wants to fight the cops now. You know what I'm saying? And
sure.
And they, to some degree, some officers have made it bad for others. We will agree with that, but not all officers are bad. Just like I would tell people, when they say I hate police. Well, that's just like a white person saying they hate all blacks, or a black person saying he hate all Asians, or a white person saying he hates, all ethnicities. Let's not do that, because then that's really the elephant in the room. What we need to find out is how we can get back to making the world safe again. And it's in Democratic and Republican places. We'll talk more with that. With Al doing the when we have the whole group thing, we can bring that up about legislators writing bills and laws, assemblymen that have maybe changed things. I think Eric was talking and saying that he's not trying to bring back stop, question, and frisk, but he might bring back stop, question. That is a good point to an officer still feeling able to do his job effectively without violating someone's rights. Colin Cabrera said cops don't make up the laws and rules. It's the politicians that make up the rules, and they want us to enforce it. Very much so. Very much so. This is not a point where we have control. What I have a problem with is that cops took an oath, and because they put their personal feelings involved, they kind of took a back seat to policing or protecting and serving, whichever word you want to say.
I got to disagree with you on this one. And yes, I agree they took an oath. Bill, we took an oath. Were there cops that we worked with who didn't do a darn thing?
Absolutely.
Right. So those have existed for a long time, right? And yes, back then I clearly had a problem with them. Right. I did not like those officers. But I get it today. I'm confused today on what we want. What does New York City want its members of NYPD to do? And it's, you want them to protect, you want them to make arrests, you want them to do everything, but you want to do it perfectly clean. And police work is dirty.
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't look pretty, Bill. And you and I know that very well. Sometimes, you got to punch somebody. Sometimes somebody gets they're going to get hurt. They're going to get scraped up, and it's not going to look nice. It's not going to sound nice. But that's what it's about.
Yeah, like Colin said, let me just interrupt for you a second.
Sure, go ahead.
Colin said, good cops need to know that they are responsible for reporting bad behavior of other cops. What's your take on that?
Well, historically, and anybody can look up the stats or do freedom information request for these stats. Internal affairs complaints, the highest percentage of complaints come in from cops.
Right.
So cops are not going to go out publicly, and it's incredibly rare, right? We're not going to go out publicly and say, I know Bill Foster and he's corrupt. Like, I'm not going to go on my Twitter account and post that. This is done privately. It is done through the proper channels. And it is done. But I don't know how you would expect cops to. I keep hearing this, and we're expecting cops to scream loudly about bad cops. And the truth of it is, they are. It's just you can't see it, and that's the way it is. And I don't know any agency, any job where the good ones are screaming publicly, get rid of these bad ones. It's done behind closed doors.
Well, I will agree with you to a certain extent, but you and I do know that a lot of times when cops are reporting other cops, it's because of stupid stuff, stupid shit. It's not so much crime or unofficial misconduct. It's basically mad ratting another cop out, and I'll use the word ratting another cop out. Say, oh, he's working off duty, but he's mad because they had an argument, or he thinks he's talking to his girl or his wife or something like that. It's not basically like, oh, I thought I saw him taking a bribe or anything like that. We don't get those kind of stats,
Well, that's what I'm saying. We don't get those stats, so we can't say it's not. We can't say it is either. But we can't, because you and I don't know those stats. Neither one of us spent years in IAB, right? I'd actually like to have someone come on and chime in who did spend some time in internal affairs, because that's speaking from, experience.
Yeah, well, I think it's a sad thing that Chuck's not here today, because he did inspections, I think. If any officers out there that wants to chime in, if you're listening, please, in lieu of what IAB, most of the reports get. Because I know most officers or supervisors that go to IAB hated it. You know what I'm saying? But for everybody transparency's sake, there are so many different people out there that work in certain divisions of IAB. Like, you can have people watching traffic agents. You have people watching chief captains and above. You have people watching regular officers. So there's just so many different levels to IAB and what they watch and how they watch us. With that being said, you and I have always talked about the integrity of the job. And right now, do you feel that officers not holding the oath is a lack of integrity?
It's a tough one. I get what you're saying with that, but I still got to go with it's a confusing job to be on right now, right? You feel like as a good cop.
I feel what you're saying about confusion. Yeah. I'm not disputing that at all, because listen, cops I know are out there. Their hands may be tied, their hands may not be tied, but I know personally, and I think you know this too, most of the work now is falling on the detective bureau to solve cases, because cops are not touching anybody. The uniform officers, and this is full transparency, everybody, the uniforms are not touching anybody anymore. So it's left to the detective bureau to solve these crimes. And, hats to them, take your hats off to them for following cases, getting cases in the past. But officers, Kevin, you and I, when we did patrol, I was talking to a friend of mine from another agency, another law enforcement agency. And, what about Leahy? He was a gun magnet. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a shame that he got hurt, but officers like that, you and Eddie C, you guys, you look for it, but shout out to Bonilla and A-Burger. Like, these were just good cops that, they could find things. It just fell out the sky in front of them.
Yeah, there were a lot of those, and like I said, we hit an era a while back of too many stops, right? And it's not too many wrong stops for the sake of statistics, and now we've hit a thing of we don't stop anybody, and somewhere in the between is the right answer, and we have to figure out, how do we get our police into that in between? How do we get them into that proper number where you are stopping some people, because there are people who need to be stopped. All right.
Absolutely.
But right now it is not easy for a cop on the street to just, to stop somebody. It can go haywire in a hurry. The person refuses to stop. And now what do you do? And now you have a melee breaks out for, a stop. And it's not, it can be not going to be perceived very well. So it's hard.
Yeah, I totally get it. And what's so funny though, NYPD, you missed last show, of course. I hope everything was good with you taking care of your stuff. Chuck and I were talking about the new thing that NYPD is implementing, ICAT, and dealing with emotionally disturbed individuals. But it's ICAT is all over around the world now. And, certain things they want to implement. But also, too, that I see that, maybe somebody has been listening to us, so they're trying to practice what we're talking about, that they're thinking about implementing a little longer distance of self-defense training in the police academy. And I think, I'm a advocate of that.
Yeah,
definitely. And I hope with the new administration, I may have something to do with that. And we both ourselves. Vanetta said, "What's going on? It's a victory day." Exactly.
What's the victory day?
Tell us. What's up, Tramel Thompson? How are you, my brother? I would love to get your take on a lot of stuff dealing with crime. How is crime dealing with transit? You might have to text me. I might have to let you come in and chop it up with us. Cabrera said that's what's overdue. And they should, Vanessa said, and they should. He said, Bill, the problem you have people in IAB that don't want to be there. How do you expect him to do a job that they don't want to be there? You're right. You're right. Let me tell you something. IAB is not a coveted position. Nobody, like when people go to IAB, because it still has that taboo of if you go to IAB, other cops are not going to like you. We understand supervisors being forced to go there. Like, hey, everybody out there listening, this is a real talk moment. With this job, sometimes you're forced to go places not where you want to be. Sometimes the places you want to go, where you feel like you still can make both change, it's not given to you. You're not giving those opportunities. So this job, blessings to those who have landed where they want to be. I totally I feel like that's a great thing. It's a shame, like I said, right now, I think everybody wants to see the mayor de Blasio go. They don't like his administration. They don't like what he's done. And, it was rumored that O'Neill had a problem with him with that reform in that legislator. That's why he wanted to go also too about, Pontaneo firing him, that he really probably didn't want to do that. Shea seemed like he was a lame duck. Good supervisor. I worked with him. He's put a lot of people of color in powerful positions. Rodney Harrison being one who I've known personally. I don't know Chief Holmes. I think a lot of people, the rumblings I hear that they don't like what she's doing. I think they're almost having like a kiosk where if if an officer, you go into a precinct and an officer doesn't do something, like you can call automatically and report the officer for not doing something, or how long were you waiting there? Like, that's too corporate. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's happening, that's too corporate. Like I get this is a business. We all understand NYPD now is a business, it's a corporation. But when we're talking about crimes where people are shooting at individuals with babies right there, and they continue to shoot. They're hitting women in the face. I just got the stats. Another shooting in Harlem, like 10 shootings in Harlem, and like it just doesn't stop. And this is just not. This is just Harlem. The Bronx is off the chain. People, if you're in the Bronx, give us some insight.
Look, we're seeing people shot on 42nd Street in daylight. Bill, I mean, that did not happen. You were able to go a decade without that happening.
Yeah.
Now we're lucky if we go a week. I mean, it's become crazy.
Right.
You know, the city has flipped its head, and like I said, Eric really has his work cut out for him. I don't know how you balance this. Right? I mean, you know, you and I have talked about this a lot, and lots of things we could do differently with police departments, but there's got to be a balance. You know, we got to change a lot of things, and I'm with you on the training and tactics we got to be better with, and we have to have our cops a little more interactive with people, right? I think like anti-crime guys need to exist, but they should also be forced to attend a PAL event once a month, a community council event once a month, right? You got to get to know. If all you do every day is chase bad guys, you forget what's around you and you don't see them anymore. You don't see the humanity of the people you're working for. And it does make a difference if the color of your skin is different, because you can start to lose focus. It's a natural, I think, occurrence.
Yeah.
You know, you need to meet people.
Yeah, I think it's great when you have checks and balances. I can talk to a story one time where, and I always say this, that at one time I was just too black. And when I say too black, I was just saying consciously black. Me and Paulie were working together. And for those that don't know, I had a great partner in P. Barbera. And we were working together. And we driving by one of those 13 streets, you know, I mean, those teen streets, 12, 13, whatever it was. And an individual was outside reading the paper. So Paulie said, yo, you know, what do you think was up with the guy? So I said, well, you know, hear me. Being from the intercity, I'm like, well, you can come out and read the paper. So Paulie was like, read the paper. He could read it in his house if he wanted to, right? Okay. So maybe he wanted to take action, you know, maybe do a little bit more investigation when I say take action. And I kind of was like, I don't know, P. You know what I'm saying? Man, sitting on the stoop reading the paper. Young, old. Later on, a week later, Paulie comes to me. He says, yo, you know that guy that was on the street reading the paper we discussed? I said, yeah. He said he got arrested for selling drugs. Okay. Good cop work. Me being understanding that a person of color, I didn't see what he saw. So I say all that to say that white officers working in communities of color, if they're still doing their job, and Paulie had the utmost integrity, it's my man, had the utmost integrity. So sometimes we have to look at the wolf. You know what I'm saying? The wolf is the wolf. Like I know I was an advocate for, you know, in the early morning sector, riding around, who's out here? Telling guys, oh, listen, you know, go get our coffee or whatever it is, drive back around, eat it, come back around, and the guy's still there. So my man, you know, who you waiting for? Oh, I'm waiting for my friend or my girl, whomever, whatever excuse he wants to give. Okay, well, listen, you was here at 7:40. It's 8:30 now. We're gonna go 5 blocks left and 5 blocks right. If he or she is not back when you get here, you got to go. If not, you can stay. You can spend the rest of the day with me. You know what I'm saying? But you got to go. That can't be done anymore. Like there was just a shooting in Harlem. Guys sitting outside, and like the streets are crazy right now. People out here barbecuing. You know, remember there was a quality of life thing. You couldn't cook open flames on the sidewalk. People are cooking grills and everything. Like the streets are just having a ball. Like, you know, Washington Square Park is out of control. Like who wants to come home and walk through that now?
No, it's a tough one. But I still also go back to, we made mistakes, right? Even the quality of life stuff. I remember going back to when we were in the 2-8 and I'm on the conditions team, and the CO, and I won't name who at the time, said we want you guys to start writing, summonses for bikes on sidewalks. And I'm like, bikes on sidewalks, okay. I said, but you got to understand. And I told the CO at the time, I was like, people have been riding their bikes on the sidewalks here for generations. I grew up in the city riding my bike on the sidewalk. We can't just go out and just start, grabbing the first 5 people we see with a bike on the sidewalk and give them tickets. But that's what the CO wanted. Like, you got to go do this. And it made, little sense, where I was like, can't we put up a couple of signs and give a couple of weeks warning? Let people know this is no longer. Can I pull people over and warn them a couple of times? No, we need the stats.
Yeah,
and then we wanted stats, and we were fighting for stats at times, and was the mistake.
Yeah, I think stats have ruined this job. That is a problem. It's a very big problem. Hey, Lois. Hey, Vanetta, of course. Lily, what's up, Nicola? How are you, sis? Cheryl, I see you. Cabrera said, let's keep it real. You have police officers inside doing clerical work. They should be doing outside enforcing the law and protecting the city. What do you think about that, Kevin?
I completely agree with that. But, we see this, but you remember back when we were in the 2-8, there was a budget crush. So what did they do? They laid off janitors, like people who got paid less, and made cops come in and clean the bathrooms, clean the precinct to lower the budget. So we paid somebody, we laid off somebody who made $35,000 a year, paid somebody $70,000 a year to do the same job, and then lost the cop on the street. It was a silly move. There are lots of cops inside, and some who need to be, right? Like, look, there are injured cops. Right? I had periods of time. You've had periods of time where you were hurt. You got to have a clerical place. So the clerical person might be injured. They also might be on monitoring because they got a couple of CCRBs. So they're like, the CO said, you're in, until we figure all this out. Right. So not every clerical person is there because they don't want to. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're there because they have to. And those make sense to me. Right. Yeah, but I'm with the person who said that, right? The other ones who are just doing it because they want to be a clerical person. No.
Yeah.
Wrong job.
As we called them when we were working house mouses.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And shout out to the person that gets the cushy position, because maybe I feel if you got 20 years on the job or close to it, you've earned your right to be inside. Absolutely. Because this out here chasing people up and down the street is a young man's game. I think it's a senior man's game to teach the young. But it's definitely a young man's game to be out there running, because, Kevin, the things that you and I did, we couldn't do that. If we were still working now, we could not do that.
I climbed anything, right? No fear. We climbed buildings, climbed broken fire escapes that were swaying, ran across roofs with holes in them of abandoned buildings. No fear.
Yes.
I go and help somebody with cutting tree off their roof. I can't get down.
Yeah, listen.
I sat there for a half hour on the roof till I couldn't get off. Dead fear. And I'm like, what happened to me? Like, where is this guy who, like, I would run across it and jump to the next roof. I didn't care. Now, the brain took over.
The brain said, and bones hurt. And brains hurt. Definitely.
Yeah.
I want to ask our listening audience out there, what are the things that you all would like to see done by the future mayor? What would be some of the things that first we're dealing with public safety? Yes, you're right, Cheryl. The streets are out of control, out of hand. What would you like to see the mayor do, Cheryl, Cabrera? Anybody out there in the Real Talk land? What would you like to see the new mayor do? And if you have a choice of what mayor you would like, then you can tell us that too. But this is Real Talk Chronicles, and I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host Kevin Branzetti, and this is Real Talk. And we're talking about what would be some of the tasks of the new mayor coming in to invoke public safety to make us all feel safe again, because the streets are off. You can talk about the homeless, the mentally ill. You can talk about gun You can talk about anything that you want to talk about, but the streets are all out of control. They really are. It's, being in Harlem and not knowing, like literally carrying your gun now, just carrying your gun. You know what I'm saying? Like not carrying your gun because you're afraid that you're going to be out late. You just don't want to come home without your firearm. But now just carrying your gun during the broad daylight, because people are getting shot in the broad daylight. This is not just a night thing anymore. Like the wolves are out 24/7. Cabrera said more technology. You have cameras. You have surveillance. You have to start building. Hey, Stefano, how are you? Steph, I know you're talking about the crime too. What would be some of the things that you would like to see done by law enforcement, the next mayor coming in, to make you feel safe? Go ahead, Vanetta. Would you say your list is so long? We'll type in 3 things so we can discuss it. Maybe Kevin and I can add some light to it. Everybody, trust me, I, like you, am uncomfortable in New York City. And New York is a beautiful place. Don't get me wrong. It's the melting pot. It is such a place where you can just have so much fun. I mean, when you have a man in the middle of Times Square ejaculating, like where did this come from? You know what I'm saying? You have people getting shot in Times Square. That is the tourist section. Who goes down to Times Square anymore? The last time I went down there, Malika and I we went on a date. You know what I'm saying? Because we had seen the changes in New York. So when do you go to New York? I mean, and that's a tourist section. What tourist wants to come back here and be a little? And wait a minute, didn't somebody just was it a Navy guy or a military guy? He tried to help somebody, right? And that was the one that got shot. Colin said, stop the interstate gun trafficking into New York City. Absolutely. We're going to talk about that. Cheryl, so I live in Harlem and I've seen, hold on, let me get my eyes together. Let's see. A plethora of behavior from civilians and officers like who you wouldn't believe. Love New York City, Harlem Board, Washington Heights grown. Absolutely. Steph said, also unsure if this is a big concern, but there's been a major rise in car accidents because people are speeding like 75 miles per hour in 25-mile residential areas. Then you got to add in the subway crimes. It's just a lot going on right now. Kev, what would you do for what would you think the mayor should do about subway crimes?
Old school, what got rid of the subway crime back in the 90s was this, they learned very quickly people who commit crimes on the subway jump turnstiles and don't pay. Right. People who go on the subway to rob us aren't paying. So NYPD back then, transit cops back then started locking up people for jumping turnstiles. I'll go with it again. We took something too far, right? I know people who had their pass, tried it a couple of times. It wasn't working. It's clearly a month pass, and they'll slip in with their friend and the cop would still lock them up. And you're like, the person's clearly they got the pass, right? Like that's not what we became robots at times. And Bill, we saw this with narcotics at times where we were just robots. 5 people on a joint made the sergeant very happy. And why are we doing it? There's smart ways of doing these things. And we can go back to locking up people jumping turnstiles. You shouldn't be able to ride the train for free. But if there's a legit reason, look, I don't know, when I was on a foot post, I let people go through at times. If they had a legit thing going on, a legit reason, you took a chance and said, all right, you know what, buddy, have a good day, get you through. Mm-hmm. We like I said, it seemed to me like we were robots, or now we let everybody. There's still a happy medium. You've used the word several times on this show. I think the police department forgot about it. Discretion.
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool, and I don't think we teach it or push it enough.
Yeah.
So my subway thing, go back to what we used to do. You got to lock them up. But then you got to convince the 5 prosecutors in New York to charge them. Because if they're not going to charge them, you can't lock them up. And right now, they're not charging.
Yeah, I think I put a post up for those If you want to, you can scroll back on my page. That a judge let a man go for something pertaining to not enough evidence. Like really? No, but or no, it was she said they racially profiled him, but I think he
on the grand jury. So what this
yes.
was, and it doesn't matter because they already got him indicted on another grand jury. At the time, Manhattan, New York City had no grand juries. This guy was arrested for a shooting. They wanted to indict him. So they sent up to the grand jury in Whitestone, not Whitestone, Westchester.
Yes.
Westchester, which just the population is more white there. It is what it is. And because he was indicted there, this judge threw it back and said it was unfair on the racial biasness of the makeup of the grand jury. And I'm like, Now, there were other cases that went to different federal judges, and all of them were upheld. This was the only judge out of several that said, we're booting this. And the judge booted it, but it didn't, in the grand scheme, it didn't matter, because by the time it was booted, this person was already re-indicted in a Manhattan grand jury, and they're held. So it was an asinine, I think, move for a judge to make. Right? This wasn't. I would be a lot more skeptical if we had a case in Manhattan and we decided to try it in Westchester in front of an all-white jury. That's a little different. Grand jury's that's a crapshoot of what's going to be in there. As law enforcement, we don't control the numbers of that. You could control a jury, and you could pick and you can throw people out for various things. Grand jurors are grand jurors. They come, they sit, you get 20-something of them. You need enough to indict. That was silly.
I want to ask all the audience, I especially would love to hear from Deb, or my former law enforcement over here. Thank you, Cabrera, for chiming in. Vanetta said, protect the culture of Brooklyn, implement after-school programs for kids and to keep them out of trouble, and offer financial education in schools such as stocks, budgeting, etc. Save the kids, change the community. Absolutely. Very good point. Yes, discretion. Cheryl said they're pushing folks on the tracks, robbing and fighting passengers. Unbelievable. Lowe said we have less parking spaces on the streets. How can they be fixed? What are your feelings of all the bicycles that they're encouraging? I'm not a fan of that at all. I'll talk about that in a minute. A jury should always be mixed, not one-sided. Absolutely. Let me ask you all of this question. What's up, John Perillo, my man? Do you think race right now is just out of control? Like everything is black, white, or Asian and stuff like that? I mean, I'm always going to, of course, rep my race, and as you should rep yours. But we understand things have definitely not been fair, and I'm not going to. I had somebody tell me, like, maybe I need to stop talking about that, and they're darker than me. I was like, yo, what's wrong with you? And it was a shame. It was an officer of color too, a former officer of color. But if you don't want to deal with the elephant in the room, then don't come in the room. I mean, we can't just think, it's going to go away. Racism is not going to go away. It's not. But do you think things, Kevin, let me ask you your personal feeling. Do you just think race is just out of control? Like everything is black, white, or Asianness or that?
Yeah. I think we look at it through a tighter or a larger scope today. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the city. Right? I grew up in Queens. Woodhaven is the neighborhood I grew up in. I would say they're a low middle class neighborhood, lower end of the middle class. Mm-hmm. My neighborhood was entirely all white, and that's kind of how the city was broken up back then, right? We were really broken up by race throughout the city. My public school, all white. Elementary school, completely all white. Right? I didn't go to a private school. I wasn't in a rich neighborhood. I said I was. Woodhaven's on the border of East New York. It was what it was. That neighborhood has changed today. It's a lot more mixed, and I see a lot more mixed neighborhoods today than I did growing up. So I actually think there's some part of this that's getting better, right? Like it's very hard to grow up a racist if you played, from the time you were 4 years old till you were 15 with your brown friend next door, right? Like it's very difficult. When all you saw was people who look like you, it is easier for people to fall into those issues.
I'm glad you said that. We're gonna comment on your post, Lois and Vanetta and everything, and Cabrera, I see you. But Kevin, let me ask you a question, and that I excuse me, everybody. I'm glad you said that. Do you think that made you biased? I mean, I think you've evolved, but did you think that made you biased? The fact that you were around so many people that look like you instead of praying with brown. See, now my community, I grew up with a mixed culture of personalities and people, like, you know, whites, Latins, like my crew, my Breakfast Club crew, you know, my Rat Pack, we were all mixed with the females too. So I learned diversity at such a young age, and all middle class. Most of us became law enforcement. Some are doctors, lawyers, you know, but everybody's hardworking. And even the ones that have stayed to the left, that they still have manners and respect the law, even though they may be this or that and been incarcerated before, but they still respect the law. You know, they just know it's a cat and mouse game, but they're not trying to be out here and just go at the law. So do you think that just because you grew up and in all, like you said, predominantly white neighborhood and school and stuff like that, did you think that gave you a little biasness?
Well, everything leads into our biases. But so middle school was different, I think a pretty fair mix. And high school was the complete opposite. I was one of only 7 white kids who graduated, right? Like in my graduating class. So it was the complete opposite. I was by far the minority in high school. So I kind of had the mixture and the change as life went on. So all of my formative years had a different perspective.
Right.
So I wasn't, you know, sheltered and kept in one area until I went to the 2-8, and that probably would have been a lot more of a shock in life.
Yeah. No, and I just thought I was apologize. I thought you said that, you know, predominantly because I'm a
elementary school. So 1 through 6. 1 through 6 was entirely white.
Right. Like I'm a definitely component that feel that we need inner city people to be law enforcement. I'm not a fan of you living in Long Island, but you can become a police officer. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not saying that, you know, this whole New York State thing, but you could take a test to be New York City police officer because daddy was a police officer. So I'm not. I personally, if I was listening, if I had the mayor's ear, I would, whomever the new mayor is going to be, I would say, listen, I want you to live in New York City for 5 years. You know, either you got to be in New York before you get on this job, equivalent of 5 years. Then you can move. But then you hear people talk about, oh, well, the rent is so high. A mortgage is just as high. A mortgage and a rent is the same thing. Even though we know it's different, you get more for your buck. I'm not disputing that. And I'm not talking about a person advancing in their careers. I'm not saying I don't want you to do that. But I think it's totally different when I came home, even to this day, people tell your business before you even tell them. You know what I'm saying? Oh, this is my friend so-and-so, you're a police officer. You know, oh, okay, well, you know, what do you think about this? I've had more, you know, corner conversations about law enforcement from trials, juries, or anything that happens than anything. So what's your take? Let me just read some of the comments real quick and statements. Lois, like I said, I definitely think that the bike thing is ridiculous. They're trying to get all the cars out of New York City. Why? Because if they're trying to generate money for the city, who the hell wants to ride the trains and the buses right now when crime is so up? Transit people are getting hurt. I think that should be a felony if you assault a transit worker. Vanetta said, okay, you said about juries. Let's see, not a fan of all these bike lanes. Absolutely not talking about race isn't going to change it. Absolutely, Vanetta. Cabrera said, it's not about race a lot of times. It's about all the viruses, like people locked down and not coming back out in the streets. People don't know how to act. That's the truth. And, you know, for all the law enforcement ears in here, we all know crime is seasonal. when it gets hot, what do we always say? We're like, oh shit, it's about to be on and popping. When the weather starts changing, now we start worrying about the gun carriers because they start able to conceal them better with their garments, and then crimes, maybe a lot of push-in robberies and you know, in the winter. I won't always chalk it up to poverty. I think some people are just have larceny in their heart. Some people just want, you know, prey on the weak. That's why I feel so bad about the elderly. That would be another thing that I would hope the mayor, whomever comes in office, can start finding things for the elderly, community centers and things of that, where they can have a safe haven to go and just get out the house and be protected. Maybe we need to put more sectors out there. I don't know. Anybody else? I got some ideas and plans. Please help us all figure it out, because the bottom line is we want our beautiful city to get back to it. I know I'm not riding the train. Car sales are up. People do not want to ride on the train. People didn't want to be around people due to the pandemic. But everybody was laying people off. So to buy a car is a wait sometimes to buy a car. You can't even rent a car right now. The prices are sky high. People were telling me about cabs, trying to get a cab or a Lyft, charging $30 to go 10 blocks or 15 blocks. Like, what is going on out here? Like it's the city just went to shit. I mean, and it's all over the world. Crime is happening in Florida. Crime is happening in any place that you think. So please, I don't want to hear the argument about, oh, it's just, you know, Democratic states or Republican states. Crime is crime. You know,
neither party has a solution. Is really my answer. I don't think either party knows what they're doing. They're arguing, you know, it's your fault, and you know, but nobody's coming with an answer.
Yeah. Anybody out there in Real Talk Land, do you have an answer? Please help us all figure it out, because I'm going to find a way. Kevin and I are going to find a way to get some of these statements and comments to whomever becomes in office. Do you have a choice? Do you want to see Curtis Lewa in office? Do you want to see Eric Adams? We all know New York is a blue state, but I'm assuming that the powers that will try to push Curtis Lewa. Staten Island has always voted Republican. It is what it is. But
I think Sliwa had a chance if Eric didn't win the primary, if another Democrat won. Because if the number one issue becomes crime, Eric's got a good basis to stand on. Some of the other Democrats aren't as strong.
Right. Absolutely. That's good.
And Sliwa would have just ran on that. Right.
Yeah.
And we say it's a blue state, but you got to remember, pre to de Blasio, we had 20 years of Republican mayors.
We had Julianne.
20 years. Twice, Bloomberg 3. It's 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, that's 5 terms, 4 years each. You know, so we can go the other direction, because New Yorkers are like Republicans. New York Republicans are kind of like myself. We're different. We're not Southern Republicans. We're not right. Like, we're socially. I don't care about anything. You can be who you want to be. Is what I believe, and I think that's what a New York Republican is. Just a little more strong on law enforcement. I just don't think Sliwa has a chance. He's an interesting character, and I enjoy listening to him. And he's got his own form of English, and you know. And he's done a great service to the city for a long time, right? Like you
talking about that Guardian Angel stuff?
Yeah, listen, look, he tries, man, right? Like, you got to say he tries.
Listen, he got his ass kicked.
Yay. More than once.
Yeah, and listen, I don't know who's going to study martial arts under him. Let me tell you something. I say that as a joke, but I do mean it. He talks a good game, you know. I will say, okay, he does talk a good game, but I'm personally not a fan of him. But like you said, I do agree with that statement you did say, though, that if anybody else besides Eric Adams would have won, he would have had a good chance. I do agree with that. I think, you know, people are over Curtis Lewa. Like, they hear him talk out of his mouth. He's a little disrespectful. Like you said, he has his own verbiage, but
he does.
Yeah, he does. But, you know, I can't wait to hear what things he does say. I mean, when they do debate and stuff like that.
It will be entertaining. I didn't watch any of the other debates. It didn't serve any purpose for me to watch them, but that one I might have to watch.
Right. Definitely. You're right about that. What else is on your mind?
I gotta say, I've seen a couple people posting about the violence is to do with the pandemic, and I completely disagree. I don't think the pandemic has anything to do with it. The violence started to go up this time last year, right? It's been a year straight now. We're 12 months into the violence has gone up. It really stems from the murder. To me, the murder of Floyd. I look at Chauvin as he caused the death of 1,000 other people, right? Like I blame, Chauvin for the death of 1,000 other people. That his murder had a ripple effect of massive proportion. It started a nationwide movement of protests and anti-law enforcement movement, and cops, went the other direction and just stopped working. And now all of a sudden, as months went by, and this started last June, our homicide numbers started to go up. We're still well in the pandemic. Last June, last July, last August, we were in lockdown, and our numbers were going up. Our train robberies were going up. The pushings were starting on the trains. It's.
Go ahead.
I look at that since 9/11. No one event has had a massive effect on our society as this one event did. I said he caused the death of 1,000 people, and it's going to be by the end of this a couple of thousand, I think.
But okay, and that's something to take into consideration, and it has some validity. But what do you say? Like officers, if you listen to some officers, a lot of officers, that they'll blame Black Lives Matter. They always going to call them a terrorist. They feel like George Floyd put himself in that situation. I've seen
anybody who says that's an idiot, right? Like you and I got no time or patience for anybody who says that.
No, and I get it. I'm just saying. But then when you have this kind of mentality and you're a protect and serve situation, I mean, even you and I have had dialogue on in lieu of Antifa and them taking over the precinct and things of that magnitude, but they did it under the Black Lives regime. And what I mean by that is that they went on Black Lives Matter. Black people are not going out hanging out with neo-Nazis, painting themselves whiteface and committing crimes and getting caught. But there was a lot of people that got caught doing that. And like I said, the narrative, people just hate Black Lives Matter. They don't even want to think. Now, look, we got an Asian law bill passed, stop Asian hate, but we couldn't even get that for people of color. So I just think people of color are just so disgusted. And it's almost like that old saying, and I don't know if you've heard this, but it's definitely a color statement, just sick and tired of being sick and tired. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I've heard it. Yep.
Yeah. Like people just fed up and now they're fighting back. And they're fighting back. And officers are getting shot. Like that's crazy to me. That was taboo years ago, not to shoot an officer. You never you talk to some of the biggest, baddest gangsters, and they'll tell you like they didn't shoot officers. You know what I'm saying? Because
we throwing water on officers to jumping on their patrol cars, dancing, kicking in there. It is. I can remember a certain lieutenant we had in the 2-8, the most respected cop probably to ever walk through the 2-8. I'm trying to avoid using names, but Bill, you know what I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Right? And somebody on the street disrespected him. Everybody on that corner, was out there playing, rolling dice. They were out there. Everybody went. That was it. Like we did not allow them to disrespect this senior lieutenant. It just didn't happen. And the people on the street who found out who did it took care of the person who did it. And that's, the way it was dealt with back then. You did not allow people to disrespect you. I would not allow somebody to if you and I were working together, nobody was disrespecting you and nobody was disrespecting me. Like there was just a line you didn't let happen.
Absolutely. And for those who think I'm just anti-law enforcement, please don't ever get it twisted. I'm definitely anti-disrespectful. I'm not a component of that. So, the job is who you call. Officers, like I said, I didn't have the problems. The problems when I had people of color that tried to call me out my name, they got dealt with. I handled.
It was rare.
Yeah.
It was rare.
But even if it wasn't, like they were handled. Like what? What you call me? What? Tom, Dick, Harry? A word? They was like, oh, okay, my bad. Yeah, because you get it. You know what I'm saying? But like the job wasn't hard to me. And I don't know why it's become hard. Like you said, what do you think about the George Floyd situation, Derek Chauvin, whatever his punk ass name is? Excuse me, everybody, that was emotional slip. What do you think about the sentencing? You think he should have got more?
So he should get the max, right? Like I got no, but I think I understand this. The two things. One, he's gotten indicted federally, so he's going to get more time. Chauvin will never see the light of day again, is my belief. I don't believe he'll ever make it out of prison alive. So he's going to get a couple of more decades from the feds, and they're going to run consecutive.
Because 22 years for, I think a lot of, like I was on a talk show in the DMV area, and they, the discussion was one person, one of the panelists was like, well, we should be happy that he got he got 22 years. And I said, well, no, I'm not happy that he got 22 years because he got 22 years because the whole world saw that he was guilty. The whole world saw a crime committed. And like I said, shame on anybody that feels anything other than the fact that he was murdered. Right?
Yeah. I just need to understand, like, I don't know Minneapolis law. Never read it.
I don't know.
Right? So I don't know if that judge made a decision based on, he might have been, do I think it was like, look, it wasn't a premeditated murder, right? It's not he didn't know George Floyd. He didn't plan this.
No, he didn't know him, but he didn't plan. Yeah, he didn't plan it. I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? So like, that's a step down in the murder rankings, right? Yeah. Premeditated murder.
Yeah, they got him for second degree, right? I think it's
second degree. So I don't know if the judge thought he was overcharged and gave a little bit lower of a sentence to make sure with the appeal, because if he's overcharged and put the highest number, that thing can get flipped on appeal and sent back to it's tossed in a new trial, right? And so there might be something along those lines. Again, I don't know. I do not know Minneapolis law. I'd love to have somebody who does and understands it. I'd like to have a lawyer from there, a prosecutor from there, and get a better understanding. It actually would have been good to hear from the judge. And maybe there's a video on YouTube of the actual sentencing that I need to sit and listen to.
Yeah. Well, if it is anybody, please send it to Kevin or myself, and we'll definitely play it to see what the judge stated. I mean, he also was, in his sentencing, he said the 180 days he did will be added to his sentence. It's just like we're wondering if somebody was asking about him getting out on good behavior, would he get out in 12 years? I was like, oh, I hope not. You know what I'm saying? Because we all know he's going to be in protected custody. He would not be in the population because he would get a cellmate named Bubba that's 6'7" and guns, arms like a monster.
It wouldn't even be a big guy. I guess there's just going to be multiple.
Well, he would be with anybody because he might be with somebody that would demolish him. And
I don't. Again, I'd like to know more about their sentencing. Like with the federal, like you have to do 80 or 85%, even for good behavior. So, do I see a parole board letting this guy out? No. I mean, like that's in a, just look. We'll be around, right? If he's not convicted by the feds, we'll be around in 15 years. The first time he goes up to the parole board. I can't imagine a parole board that would let him go.
Yeah, we pray. We pray that doesn't
I
happen.
can't imagine. But man, it would be ugly.
We thought the riots were ugly then. They would definitely be right. And
Yeah.
speaking of letting go, what's your take, everybody out there in Real Talk Land? What's your take on Bill Cosby being released?
Look, I mean, I heard a little bit about it, and I remember this from when he was initially locked up a little bit with, you know, he was told he would not be charged and things were taken care of back in the day. You know, if he proved it, you know, my man is free. But I think with him, does it matter? Right? Like, he's not. Is he a threat to women at this point? You know, I mean, it's out. Right.
Well, I know one thing. Anybody, if there's a woman out there that can't knock his old ass down, it's a damn shame. Because you know what's so funny? At 83 years old, you need to slap the S out of him. But you know what's so funny? Somebody was saying that justice will serve that because he could never work again. He can never. No. Let me tell you something. America's father, and he was America's father to every nationality.
Yeah. 100%.
He has just lost all his credibility and things of that magnitude. And if he's able to use the system to behoove him, you know, I think this is totally different back then, where I think people of color were happy when OJ got off, but they was like, yeah, he did it, but it was one for the Gipper. Like this one right here now, there are too many women involved and too much evidence that proved that he had violated, you know, women. And I don't think anybody really feels like, oh, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. You know, I'm not sitting here throwing a parade that, yo, okay, I'm glad Bill is off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sitting here saying that.
No, I actually, like I said, in the end, I think he got the public humiliation was worse than the jail sentence for him. Right. And he's so well known. I don't know how he would ever get another woman, you know, or a person to even, you know, hang out with him. Like he's a toxic individual at this point.
Absolutely. Shout out to my man Dwayne Montgomery in the building. Like you said, Stefana, he's still a creep. Absolutely. My thoughts is that he's a creep that got let out due to a technicality. Yeah. You're right, Vanetta. He's no longer a threat. Protective means nothing if someone wants to get at you. Exactly. I'm sure you're talking about George Floyd. Well, I'm not going to go on social media in this podcast and say, I hope somebody get at him. But if you kind of ask me offline, you know what I'm
saying? When his day is finally done, we ain't crying.
Not at all. Not at all. I don't know who, and you know what's so funny? What was so disgusting was to hear his mother say that he was the best out of all her children. Well, what the hell did you raise? You raised a bunch of
I never judge what a mama says.
Listen,
I never.
That mama needed to say, "I'm sorry that this shit happened," and my son, he effed up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just will never judge what a mama says. I can't. They get carte blanche with me. You know, whether they're on either side of it, if their kid is the victim, if their kid is the perpetrator. I don't blame a mom for saying whatever she wants to say.
I got you. Colin said, I think he can make a comeback if he really wants to, but I don't think he does.
He'll make a comeback if Weinstein gets out and opens up his own studio.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. You never know with today's things going on. Everybody out there, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. And, you know, the initial topic that we started off with, what do you think the new mayor should do in regards to public safety, whomever takes the office? We also talked about the Derek Chauvin trial or the sentencing. Oh, this is what I told Chuck that I was going to talk to you about. You remember 2 weeks ago, you was talking to us about this all the people that got incarcerated from January 6th, right? You know, the first sentencing of first person got probation. That's like a good look.
What do they get charged with? If people who would, so Bill, there's people who got charged with just the trespassing, and honestly, trespassing at that point, I don't think probation is crazy. If that's the first time you're arrested in your life, if you had a weapon or flex cuffs on you or something along those lines, no, I want jail.
Okay.
Right, well, like that's been my line in the sand. You know, like I can understand somebody being there. Look, you're allowed to be there. You're allowed to be protest. You know, that's your God-given right. Fine. We can politically disagree on things, but that's your given right. I can see a crowd getting crazy and you going with a mob. Look, we saw that all over this country. People went with a mob, and things happen. If you were the one who smashed in the door, if you're the one who knocked over a cop to get through, if you're the one who had weapon, you had flex cuffs, jail. 0. I got 0 patience. But if you're just part of the mob, I actually think probation's a fair answer.
Okay. I mean, everybody out there in Real Talk Land, what do you think? Should probation just for trespassing on federal property be a probation and no jail time? What's your thoughts and comments? Please chime in and let us know. Yeah. What is anything else happening out here in this world that really needs our undivided attention right now? Of course, the Republicans and Democrats are still doing Republicans and Democrat shit. You know what I'm saying? What do we say about that? Go ahead.
You know my opinion of parties. Like I said, I lean more right. I'm a registered Republican. I vote usually that direction. Mm-hmm. But I consider myself more up the middle, and I just want politicians that unite.
Right.
If you're a uniter, I'm in.
Right.
You know, and we do not see them. You know, they don't really exist. It's rare.
Let me ask you a question. And you said something. Made a good point on something. I think more than ever, due to 45, he made it almost distasteful to be a Republican because you would vote for him.
Yeah.
Like he almost took away the freedom of, and don't get me wrong, I know Black Republicans. You know what I'm saying? Like I always tell people, my father was a Republican.
You know the 4 of them?
I know the 4 of them. Yes, I do. I know the 4 of them. And I say that, but it's just like they was like, oh, I'm not voting for him. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just, humiliated the party and stuff like that. What do you think on the fact that he still has a chokehold on the Republican Party?
Yeah. Well, look, we'll see how it goes another year or two. Yes, he did hold a rally in this last week, my understanding, in Ohio or somewhere.
Yep.
If the Republican Party holds on to them, it's a loss.
Yeah.
It's just delaying the inevitable.
Yeah.
After the 2016 election, there was a lot of talk of Hillary going at it again. Right? When we were in 2016, yeah.
No, but I'm saying,
right. There was a lot of people on the Democrat side say, we screwed up some things. We should have done this. And can we have Hillary go again? And that didn't take the Democratic Party long to realize you can't go back to the loser. Right. And if the Republicans don't realize you can't go back to the loser, 4 more years is what this will be of Biden. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no question. This is not obtainable. He makes you feel like I have to watch in circles where I say I'm a Republican because people will look at me and go, "Oh, you effing racist." I don't like. Where does that have to? But there is a population that believes that.
Because it's so funny. People, when you say you're a Republican, the first thing they think, and with your skin, they think you voted for Trump. And it's almost like you got to denounce him for somebody to be like, okay, like you can have a beer with me. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't, the first thing is people is looking at you like, yo, dog, really? And this is the one time there are some those that will vote Republican because they're Republican. There's those who will vote Democrat just because they're Democrat. But the bottom line is, everybody, please, you got a choice, and always put the best person in the office. Like I never said I was a Joe Biden fan, but I knew I was going for anybody other than Trump.
Nobody said they were a Joe Biden fan.
No, but I'm just saying I was going for anybody other than Trump. And then the fact that Biden 3 times was a charm for him. You know what I'm saying? Like he put a female. Like there were people that can't stand that he picked Kamala. You know what I'm saying? Because of what she did, they felt how she was as a district attorney in L.A. So I mean California. So and a senator and things of that magnitude. So people still talking about that, but I know people of color can't forgive her. But who you want? Who you want? The lesser of two evils. So I mean, everybody out there.
I don't know if I call it the lesser of two evils, but
no. It's definitely she's not.
I understand your phrase.
Yeah. Wrong terminology in regards to that, but definitely she's not an old boy. And I say all that to say, man, please. So everybody, pick topics that you want us to talk about. Kevin, is anything dealing with abductions that you want to discuss?
That's where I was last week. I was running our yearly conference, the National Child Protection Task Force, our yearly conference. So I was in Arkansas for the week. Nice part of the country. I kind of like,
peaceful out there, isn't it?
Very, very, very peaceful. Happy, nice people. But so it was 5 days of working hard and trying to get things done. But that nonprofit is taking off nicely, and we're doing good work, and we're volunteering and helping with missing kid cases all over the country nonstop. So it's a great cause, a great thing, a great effort. Met some spectacular people. I'm working with some spectacular people.
Good for you.
So, I know there's a good chance that's where my next career will be full time.
Well, I trust me. I think I can see Kevin on America's Kevin's Most Wanted. Have you seen this child? Vanetta said, "What about the track and field lady who turned her back on the flag?" I didn't see that. What was her? Vanetta? What was her nationality? What's my thought on it though? Listen. Me as a person of color, I'm not patriotic. Do I love America? I love America as much as it loves me. Of course, it's a place where I live, and I've made my bread and butter. And would I want to be somewhere else in some third world country? Absolutely not. But the bottom line is, do I still like the national anthem being sung? No, I do not. I think "Lift Every Voice" is another opportunity, another song. There are other songs that could replace the national anthem. There's so much baggage with that. And she was Black. Okay. What was the temperature on her turning her back on it? Because I really haven't heard that. You have to send that to me, inbox me or text me that, V, so I can look at this and I'll share with Kevin. But the flag, it is what it is. There are some people out here that are just so patriotic that they're going to be like, people were mad. I'm sure they were. Athletes have really stepped their game up and said, F what it is. There's no more shut up and dribble. What's your take on it, Kevin? I mean, yeah, but now, Kevin, this is a point too that I think that you might say she's representing the United States. So how do you turn?
No, Bill, I've told you about this. This is all goes back to the day you and I really started talking again.
Right.
You know my opinion, right? Look, I am a firm believer. I say what I do for law enforcement, what I do for missing kids. It's for God and country, right? Like that's. Mm-hmm. I have no problem with that phrase. I am a believer in America and what we stand for and where I hope we're going in the world.
Right.
when we first saw that with Kaepernick with kneeling, I did not like it, but I had my tune changed on
Yeah.
it, and my tune. I'm reading a little bit of her. It doesn't even. I'm not even 100% sure she did it on purpose, right? Like she's kind of. I'm reading different things, so I got to read a little bit more. And clearly, I can't do that while we're on. But
Absolutely.
look, if she wanted to do it, it's her right.
Yeah.
And if people want to be angry with her for doing it, well, I also have to say that's their right. We could talk to people, we can have a conversation and convince them otherwise. But I mean, you know the story, but I'll say it again. This goes back to the murder of Ramos and Lou, two NYPD cops who were killed. And when De Blasio came to the hospital to see them, I mean, all of the uniformed cops turned their back on De Blasio as he walked by. It wasn't pre-planned. It was just spontaneous and contagious. They're police on duty, in uniform, protesting.
Yeah. Well, Colin, hold on. What I'm saying, Colin, when I was talking about third world country, I'm saying a place like, I'm not from, well, Colin, you know what a third world country is. I don't have to I mean, this is America and a third world country. I mean, there's places that we know of, Haiti, DR, stuff like that. People are getting chopped up if you go in a wrong street. So that's not, I mean, New York, United States is getting close to that in certain cities, but it ain't that. So I'd rather be here than there. But I'm not talking about going someplace where I never forget, like, do I want to stand at the flag? When I go to the baseball game, did I want to stand? It's really up in the air, but I don't want to punch nobody in the mouth. I didn't come there to fight. And there's going to be somebody with a drunken stupor that thinks he's going to get some beer balls, and he's going to say something that's going to throw a beer at me, and then I'm just going to be all on the news, and he's going to see there Bill go again. You know what I'm saying? He's in the stands just throwing haymakers. So do I want that problem? No, but am I built for it? Absolutely. But at the older I get, do I want that kind of problem? There's certain things you can turn the cheek. So progressive nations, I get it, Colin. I definitely get it. Just busting your chops. I know you are, brother. I love you to death, man. So go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry.
So there was that incident, right? The NYPD guys turned their back on De Blasio. Again, they were in uniform. They're working and protesting.
Yep.
And I was completely behind that, 100%. Well, I can't be a hypocrite in this world. Colin Kaepernick and other football players in uniform, working, protesting.
Yeah.
Either you're for it or you're against it. You can't be for it because it fit. If you're only for it when it fits your political, exactly. If it fits your political, then you're just a hypocrite. You either believe people have the right to do it. So if you're against her protesting, that's fine. But you have better been against the NYPD when they protested De Blasio, and you better have been against the rest of it. You're either all in or all out.
Absolutely. Vanessa said, I'm not standing because my people then and aren't free and still treated unfairly. Absolutely. I would have done it too, Kevin. I get it. So yeah, I mean, listen, that's a whole conversation about the flag. Yeah. And I'm for it. I'm for anybody that listen right now. Taking down statues and things. I'm all for change. I'm for change. Like the one thing that you and I talked about, Kevin, and you answered it very right. I mean, what I think was very right is when I told you about Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Black Wall Street massacre. And the first thing you said on the podcast, you said, how come this wasn't taught in school? Why wasn't it taught in the history? Why? I mean, thank God that you have a friend that would educate you on something like that. But it's a shame, like you said, you a knowledgeable individual. All your life, like I said, we done learned about the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. F that damn shit. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
You know where I first learned of it? I think it was an HBO series.
Right.
And it's a fictional series, but it had like that as part of it. And I was like, what the heck is this kind of thing? And then you learn a little bit about it. But I grew up in New York City, and New York City's public education.
Yeah.
But I had to memorize the kings of England.
Well, think about it. I grew up I went to private school and Catholic school, and I still didn't know about Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had to learn it. I had to learn it from educated people of color that shared the knowledge and talking. Let me tell you something. I think one of the best studies to ever have in college is Black and Puerto Rican studies, or studies of I mean, don't get me wrong. I was a history buff. I love history. I love English. But the more history you talk is from the elders, people that have experienced it. People are not sitting here talking that. Some people want to, like I said, I see a lot of young people out here talking about this and that and things of that magnitude, and like I call them super woke people. Like you really don't know anything, but you talking a whole lot of nothing. You know what I'm saying? But like you said, sometimes I'm with you on that. Like, give me facts. But I do believe in history. That's why a lot of times I do try to post historical stuff that dealing with people of color, because as people have said, we built this building, we built that building, and we built this country, and we built that. And it is upsetting to hear somebody say, "Oh, let's not talk about the past." Well, everybody wants to know about their grandmother and their grandfather. Everybody wants to know about their parents. So don't pick your poison on what past you want to learn. Let's learn about the past of everything, and then we'll understand. Because I always say, if school taught people that people of color were kings and queens before they were slaves, I think there'd be a whole lot of empathy and sympathetic ears for how people act today. And that's just my personal feeling with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Look, we have to learn about each other. We can't be a melting pot without understanding who else is in the pot.
Absolutely, brother.
It just doesn't work, But we are still the great experiment of the world.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
What other country has this mixture? Good chunk of us, we all came from different tribes. Our ancestors came from different places. Some of us voluntarily came here. Some of us involuntarily came here, right? Yeah. We are a mixture. Racism exists and prejudice in every country on this planet, right? There is not a country on this planet that doesn't have a problem, that wasn't in a civil war at some point, that wasn't fighting with their neighbor because of religion, that wasn't fighting internally because you look differently. There are how many nations today in battles over religion, tribes, your look. It is something that goes on everywhere. Yeah. And if we want the American experiment to work, we got to learn about each other. Yeah. We just I can't understand things that you say without understanding where Bill came from.
Yeah, absolutely.
I only understand what I hear.
I would love to get that lady. I forgot her name. Correct me if I'm wrong, everybody. I think Janet Nelson. I think if that's the historian, the school teacher. I would love to get her on. Boy, if I could get her on, and she just, I love her. She breaks it down so eloquently on history and the white race and the black race and stuff like that. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. This is Real Talk every Wednesday. Coming up next week, we will be off, so don't look for us. It'll be the 4th of July, whatever that means to you. It'll just mean that we will not be here for me. And then we'll be back next week with Kevin. And then the following Monday, we will have I think that's the 12th. We will have all the hosts with Real Talkers on here. So please, I always ask any of y'all, whomever would love to be on any of the shows, you're more than welcome to come on and chop it up with Kevin and I, or any of the panel at their giving times and places. You're always more than welcome, as long as you just come with some good content. I embrace it. Thank you for all my lieutenants of information that hit me up behind the sides. I appreciate you all the time. You keep me looking and reading. You definitely give me homework assignments. So with that being said, we're not going to force we're not going to force anything. Kevin, if there's anything else you want to talk about, or anybody out there, if there's something else you want us to talk about, we're going to say goodnight in a minute. You know,
My kids will be very happy that I'm gonna, they keep popping their heads and looking for me. So
Islanders, what's the story with them? They lost or
they lost.
they lost, right? Well, New York was doing it. We was in it for a minute, y'all. Shout out. I'm really trying to fit in a sports segment. Mets are looking good. Yankees are struggling. NBA draft, football season. What do you think about the quarterbacks? So please, anybody that wants to be a part of that little sports segment, let me tell you something. Olympics, Tokyo, we're gonna talk about it. Track and field. I was watching the trials. I really enjoyed it. So everybody, Kevin, give us some words of affirmation before we get out of here, please.
All right. I'll go with this every time. Take a break. Get off social media for a day. Just walk away from it. Have your day to be with friends, God, family, whatever it is. But get off of it. Learn a little bit about somebody else. If you sit on the left, you sit on the right, you sit here, you sit there, you learn something today, right? You read something and it annoys you. Try to find the newspaper with the opposite point of view and read that same article and try to learn to the other person's perspective. You may learn something about yourself, about them, about the world when we listen to a little bit of both sides. Just once in a blue moon. Not every time you hear something, but you find something interesting, something that kind of bothers you. Read about it from the other side's perspective and just get a little more understanding. You may completely still disagree with them and hate them afterwards, and that's fine. But you took the time and you'll be more educated in your fight with that person. Anyway, this is the worst that can happen is you're a little more educated.
Oh, absolutely.
Stay cool.
That's it. Everybody, please watch your back. Be careful. If you like Real Talk Chronicles, subscribe to it, share it. Support your boy or your boys, whomever. If you see, I took care of that kind of little glitch in the G's. There wasn't any 2 G's tonight. I kind of rebooted the system, making sure things was all right.
Me too.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I think I'm gonna have to do before every show is just make sure I reboot the internet to make sure things are flowing the way that it is. And everybody, good night. Keep in touch. Be careful. Watch your back, ladies, gentlemen. You remember once upon a time, you used to always say, ladies, be careful. Everybody be careful. I do not think there isn't anyone that is a prey. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody is a victim. Everybody's a victim, right? It can be a victim right now. Watch yourselves. Just be careful. Right now people are just doing things. Shout out to Darren Joseph. I see you coming in the building, brother. But we about to get out of here in a minute. Always, great to see all my people. Be safe. Holla at your boys. Talk to you later. Everybody, good night.